Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again on this Saturday morning and time for some more stories. Right, thankfully, I'm happy to report that the 3 stories I'm about to read out have never been read out on this channel before. They're brand new stories. Don't know about other channels, lots of new channels popping up these days. The first 2 are very, very short. The third one I think is one of the best stories that have ever been sent into this channel. It's very, very interesting, very entertaining, and 1 or 2 things to learn from it. Okay, before I get into the stories, I'd just like to mention, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you'll know about 6 weeks ago I changed the format. For the last few years, I've had a static image behind me, like a video playing of a waterfall or a nice beach or something like that. And I changed the format to some B-roll. I'd actually go out and film in the daytime and have that as my background. And I put a poll out and I asked people what they preferred. And the majority said they like the new format. However, there are a few people who have written to me and said, look, you know, it's a bit off-putting. I like the old style where you're just telling the stories. So I said to them, every now and again, I'll drop one in for you just to keep you happy, trying to keep everybody happy here, right? So today I'm going to do one of the older style formats with a static background. I haven't chosen the background yet, maybe a waterfall or a nice beach scene, something like that. Okay, but that doesn't really matter. What matters the most is the story. So let's get into the first of 2 short ones, and then we'll go into that third longer one I was telling you about. Okay.
สวัสดีค่ะ
About 3 years ago, while going through a messy divorce after 18 years of a hellish marriage, I brought myself a smart TV and started watching travel videos on Thailand. I live in Australia, but my first trip was to Pattaya in 1986, which is a faded memory. Since then, I stopped in Bangkok overnight for connecting flights to Asia or the UK a few times. But limited fun, as I was under the thumb of a psychotic wife. Once separated, I had my eyes set on Bangkok in August of 2019. This was for both shopping and fun for about 10 days. Upon return, I immediately booked my next trip and hotel to Pattaya around Easter 2020. COVID-19 came in February of 2020 and I had to cancel my trip. The Scoot Airlines gave me vouchers to be redeemed at a later date. The next 3 years was hellish with lockdowns, etc. And come January 2023, I booked my trip to Bangkok and 7 nights at the Romchit Hotel directly above the Therme Cafe. During lockdown, I was watching a lot of vlogs from Thailand, including your channel, of course. I always liked your style of storytelling, so I kept coming back for more. My research on Bangkok paid off, and so I headed straight for the Therme Cafe. On one occasion, I even surprised myself by inviting a ladyboy in broad daylight to my hotel room. They come cheaper than the Therme girls, and just once was enough to convince me that I am as straight as a lightning rod. Upon return, I booked my next trip to Bangkok in April or Songkran 2023. In preparation for this trip, I signed up on a Thai dating app to expand my activity beyond Therme Cafe. Upon arrival, I got ghosted by all 3 of the Thai girls who have been chatting to me for several weeks. Sounded genuine, and I told them when I arrived in Bangkok. A few other girls even tried to scam me via the usual crypto scheme or real estate investments. Because of my vast experience in both of these areas, I could spot holes in their stories, and so they ran away. So I was sitting alone in the courtyard of my hotel at Soi 15, Sukhumvit, having a nice cold beer when I decided to give up on Thailand and try Vietnam. I got influenced by a couple of vloggers who moved to Vietnam because Thailand got expensive after the pandemic and they were loving it in Da Nang. So, as my Thai dating app also had a Vietnamese channel at a discount for existing members, I signed up and started sending out likes in a matter of minutes. My profile on the Thai dating site was seemingly transferred to their Vietnamese sister app, and everything was identical except for the background colour. Within the hour, I got a response from a rather attractive Vietnamese girl. Spoiler alert, her profile photos were taken when she was 21, but when I met her in Saigon in 5 months' time, she was 31, put on weight, and had aged accordingly, but still could turn heads in the street and in the hotel lobbies. She was very keen from the word go and wanted to move to Zalo in Vietnam. No one uses Line. I explained to her that I am on a business trip to Bangkok and I'm using a Thai SIM. Upon return to Australia, I will download Zalo and authenticate it on my local SIM there. So as promised to her, I returned home, downloaded Zalo and sent out a friend request to her. She answered straight away and texting continued for a few days. On one evening, she video called me on Zalo and made small talk for probably half an hour. For the next 5 months, both video calls and texting continued, and I believe she, besides love bombarding me, she was also making calls at random times to check that I am really alone and not in a relationship. In those 5 months, as I was preparing to visit her in Saigon, she first got hospitalized with pneumonia and video called me from the hospital bed about paying for strong antibiotics that are imported and hence very expensive for the locals. It also looked genuine with her hooked up for drops, so I sent her money via Western Union. This is how the financial scam started, and looking back, I say it was a slow con. She was a farm girl from a village 4 hours outside of Saigon. I begged her not to return to farm work after 10 days in hospital with pneumonia. She initially acted proud and refused any financial help, but eventually relented, and I was over the moon because I could be of some use to my dream girl from Vietnam. As like all the scams reported out of Thailand, it can be the same in Vietnam. And that's kind of a strange ending to the story. When I read this, when I was preparing it, editing it, I expected it to go into a bit more depth and it would end in a different way, but it didn't. That's it. All I can say on the dating apps, you have to be really, really careful because they are. I know a lot of guys out here have met some real nice girls and they're now boyfriend, girlfriend, and even husband and wife. But it's a minefield. The dating apps are a minefield. You know, they're used by scammers who are not even in Thailand, and also these crypto. You know, people trying to sell you crypto and, like the guy says, real estate. So you just have to be very, very careful and try and weed out the crap, as they say. Right. Okay. Into our second story, and again, this is quite a short story. This is a happy Thailand story. I am 70, and the first time I went to Thailand was sent by a Canadian equipment manufacturing company to a large food production area in the countryside to train as a technician and help install some large machines. I was 25 at the time, 1978, blonde, blue-eyed and fit. 2 of us were housed at the plant in a camp because of the distance to the town. It was a very interesting experience as we were living among the Thais, and this was not a vacation. Needless to say, there was no nightlife or bars. Now, this was in the mid-1970s, and Thailand was, at least in this part of the country I was in, a much sleepier place. Remember, there was no internet, no email, and no phone calls were expensive. Many of the villages didn't even have electricity. This was a very quiet place. Farangs were very rare in this area. There was a little village about a kilometre away where I used to walk sometimes. The village houses were right on the dirt road. Little children played and old men sat smoking. More often than not, when I walked through, as I approached the location of the children, a door would open and an older Thai woman, probably a grandmother, would scamper out and gather the 2 or 3 children and rush them indoors away from the danger. As I walked by, I could often see eyes peering at me through whatever gaps in the wood were available. I am certain I was the first Farang ever to enter the village, maybe even the surrounding area. That little village near us had a movie projected onto a wall from a travelling projector truck about once a month. I attended one night and sat on the concrete floor with the other 100 all-time moviegoers. I sat there for a very short time waiting for the movie when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Someone had wheeled a motor scooter to my location in the crowd, and I was directed to sit on it. It was clearly a kind offering to a valued guest, so I accepted. To say I felt conspicuous is an understatement, but refusing the offer didn't seem right, so there I sat. Everyone was looking at me, and I mean everyone. I felt like I was on a stage, but I had no performance to give them. I couldn't speak their language, so I amused myself by making silly eyes at the youngest children, which made them squeal and seemed to amuse everyone. Then some of the older women kind of lined up and took turns stroking the blonde hair on my tanned arms and giggling with each other, always refusing to make eye contact. This continued for almost all of the first feature. All I remember of the first feature is it had a number of deaths from thrown chopsticks. The second had Thai actors and with American cars with lots of gunfire. Southeast Asia was a very different place for Farangs at that time. After a few weeks on the farm, my Irish trainer came back from a small town with a bar girl. I didn't much like the girl because she seemed somehow to be always scheming. She was always going on about getting a Canadian passport, which seemed to amuse the Irish guy. I didn't think about it too much. I decided to go with him the next time. At the time in Korat, I don't recall seeing girly bars, but the hotels came in two varieties. The ones with names were for sleeping and eating. The ones with numbers, the 999 hotel, for instance, were for girls. I only went there 3 or 4 times, but the number hotels I saw had a bit of a bar with a brightly lit glassed-in area where pretty country girls, maybe 20, were sat with number tags on. You simply took your beer up to the window and looked at the girls until you found one you liked. When you returned to your table, an older woman would appear and query which number girl you liked. Then she would arrive and peel nuts and feed them to you. They didn't ask for a drink or attempt any English or even, in my limited experience, make any eye contact. I got the sense they were terrified to be sat beside such a long-haired monkey from another planet. The only thing I could do to relax them was the same silly eye trick that amused the kids at the movie. And these young girls reacted in much the same way. I could never take one of these girls to my room because they seemed too shy. The next time the Irishman went to town, he came back with his girl and the most exquisite, wide-eyed, smiling farm girl I'd ever seen. When we made eye contact, the breath seemed to leave her body, and she looked, what's the word, relevant, adoring. What a smile, what a vision she was. She stayed with me on the farm for a month. At all times and in every way she attended to me. I felt devotion and I sought to please her too. For a fee she wanted a Sony Triniton TV, about $300 at the time. Not a lot. When I left, I drove her to home and said goodbye. She gave me a beautiful Thai sarong because she knew I liked to sleep in a sarong. I sleep in that same sarong to this day. I think about Supon every day. I have been back to Thailand many times since. I love the new Thailand, but you know what they say, you can never go back home. So that's a nice little story that I'd love to have been around in the 70s. I mean, I was only 10 in 1970, but you know, I can see a big difference in 30 years from when I first arrived in 91 to now 2024. Lots and lots of changes I can see, big time. And I'm just wondering, between when I first arrived in the 1970, it must have been, you know, real rural everywhere except, you know, major cities like Bangkok. But it would have been interesting. But you know what they say, you can never go back in time. Right, into the feature, as they say. This is the main story of the day. It's a long story. It's going to be very entertaining. And I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoyed reading it the first time. My name is Martin and my story starts in the year 2017. I was 19 at the time and visited Thailand with my parents and my younger sister. My family has a long history of travelling to Thailand starting in the mid-80s. I was 3 years old when I first came to Thailand in 1990. We visited Koh Samui regularly almost every year and kept the tradition alive. This year we travelled with a rented car from Bangkok to Kelak and back. One stop was of course Koh Samui. We had plans to meet a friend of my parents who lived in Thailand for the last few years. His name was John. He was around 40 years old and lived on Koh Samui. He invited us to his home for a barbecue and we met his Thai girlfriend. Her name was Na. She was around 10 years younger than him and worked at a massage place located at the beach. We had good food with a lot of seafood and some beers. After dinner, it was planned that we would go out to party at Chawang Beach. I was told that we were going to meet Na's younger sister, Tum, later. But before we left, Na said that she felt ill and she would stay at home. I was a bit sad because I was excited to meet Tum and now this meeting would not happen. John still wanted to show us around the party area and promised me a good time. The first stop was Q Bar Samui, located on a street way up the hill. There was an event on at the time and the women there were absolutely beautiful. After some drinks, my parents and my sister went back home and John and I went to the party area of Chawang. He asked me if I was interested in spending the night with a Thai girl. I was already drunk and there were beautiful girls everywhere. So I said yes, why not? I don't remember how exactly it went, but after some time we were dancing and drinking with two women. In the end, I don't know if he went somewhere with the other girl, but at one point I was alone with the woman of my choice. We still drank, danced and had fun. I didn't know how the rest would go on from here. She brought me to a small hotel and we went inside. I was wondering because we didn't check in but went straight to the elevator and to the top floor. But we didn't stop there. We had to walk some more stairs and arrived on the roof of the hotel. There were some water tanks and small shacks or huts. She told me to be quiet and we walked to a small one at the corner of the roof. It was a crazy experience for me to see firsthand and how some working girls live. The next morning, I woke up from an aeroplane flying directly over me. At this time, I was thinking about everything that happened last night. We had some small talk and she told me that she has a boyfriend from Germany. I could even see pictures of him hanging on the wall in her room. I gave her some money and thanked her for last night. I came back to party at Chawang again 1 week later. It was a full moon party on the neighborhood island. Everything was quiet and nothing like last week. I got pulled in one bar and one girl came straight to me. We played pool and the typical games. I lost all the time and at the same time I got drunk. I paid for what they asked me and ended up taking the first girl out of the bar. Normally I wouldn't choose her, but I was too nice to tell her that she isn't my type. She brought me to the same hotel as 1 week before, but this time I paid for a room and it was a bit more comfortable than the roof hut. Next morning we went to her room about 10 minutes away. There were already 3 other women and 1 man from the UK there. They gave us some space and headed out for breakfast. We cuddled a bit and showered together. After that, she brought me to a taxi and we said goodbye. 1 year later, I went to Koh Samui again, this time with Pete, a friend of mine and my family, of course. We stayed at the Mainam beach, a relatively quiet and family-friendly beach. The first week, my friend had a culture shock and he needed some time to get comfortable with Thailand. The next 3 weeks, we regularly went to a bar at the main road to play pool and had some drinks. It wasn't the typical beer bar. Only 2 ladies worked in this bar. B was around 28 and Nat around 21 years old. At least that's what they told us. We had a lot of fun meeting different people in the bar and there was no pressure to buy lady drinks whatsoever. We just paid for our beer and everything else was free. We even got invited for fried chicken and papaya salad. Normally we headed out to the party beach after some drinks just to dance and experience the atmosphere in the open air nightclubs. After almost 2 weeks in the bar, I started to really enjoy spending time with Nat, and at one point I asked her if she wanted to come with me back to the beach. I couldn't invite her to my bungalow because I shared my room with Pete. We talked about stuff while walking on the beach at night, and when we got tired, we lied down in a hammock and started kissing. This happened the next few nights. Then I had enough and I moved to my own bungalow. The same day, John and Na from last year arrived on Koh Samui. They had moved to Phuket and came to visit me and my family. They stayed in the same resort as us. In the evening, we went out to the bars at the main road to start with some drinks. I had feelings for Nat and really wanted to spend the night with her. I asked her if she would come with us to party. She declined and I was a bit sad. Na asked them how much the bar fine is for her, but she didn't want to go. I told her that I have a room for myself now and asked if she is sure that she did not want to go with us. She still declined. I accepted it and we went off. From here on in, everything is blurry because there was a lot of alcohol involved. At first, we were just 5 people partying. John and Na, Pete and my sister and me. Suddenly, there was someone else and I was flashed by her beauty. Na's sister Tum had arrived and I couldn't believe my eyes. She was exactly my type. Until a few hours ago, I still had hopes to spend the rest of my holiday with Nat, and now I couldn't take my eyes off Tum. I tried to tell Pete to make a move on her, but he wasn't really into Thai girls. He would rather try to hook up with other tourists. At one point, we were more than 12 people partying and drinking buckets together. The last thing I remember is 1 round of tequila. I woke up in my bungalow and I wasn't alone. Tum was next to me and I couldn't believe it. I checked my phone for the time and it was around 1 p.m. There were a few messages on my phone. Are you okay? What happened last night? Where are you? Is Tom with you? I don't know what happened and I wasn't the only one with missing memories, but that didn't bother me much at the moment. There was one more message. Hi, I finished my work now. Where are you? Can I come to your room? The last message was from Nat. Wow, I was feeling a bit guilty now, but I felt like I'd given Nat a lot of chances the evening before. I told her that I am sorry and that it's better for us if we do not meet again. We had 2 more nights before heading back to Bangkok and I chose to spend my time with Tom. We never went to that bar again. Tom was 24 years old at the time and owned a small salon shop at Chawang Beach and worked as a hairdresser. Even though we spent the nights together, we didn't really talk. I don't know why I thought that Tom didn't speak English. Later I would find out that her English is quite good. When we kissed goodbye, there was a tear in her eye. I couldn't tell if she was sad because I didn't pay her anything or if she enjoyed the time with me that much. At this point, I didn't see a future for us, so I didn't even ask for her number or email address. When I arrived in Bangkok, I started to miss her already, but there was not much I could do. The only one thing, I would come back to Thailand and I would see her again. Back in Germany, I contacted John and asked for Tom's email address. Back then, the MSN Messenger was the common thing to communicate, and that's how Tom and I chatted for the next few months. I told Tom that I just started studying at university. I downloaded a software that allowed me to call Thailand for free, and we started talking every day. She told me she is single and that she liked me too. I made plans to visit her in October 2008, around 6 months after I left her. John told me that she is a good girl and confirmed what she told me so far. I found out that Na wasn't her real sister, but they were neighbours in a small town in Isan, around 50 kilometres away from Sisiket. When I booked my flight to Thailand, we already called ourselves a couple. I had totally lost interest in the girls I liked in my country and was super excited to meet Tom again. She picked me up from the airport and we went straight to a hotel room she booked for us. I was totally in love with her and the magic that I felt the first time I saw her was still there. When I look back now, there are so many stupid decisions that I made, but when they happened, I always let my heart make the decisions. I was jet lagged and exhausted from my flight and Tom went out to get some food. She left her phone in the room and I decided to have a look. I found pictures of her and an older man around 50 years old. I was shocked. She never told me about someone else. We haven't talked about past relationships and I thought she was single. When she came back, I asked her about him. She said that he is just a friend who helped her with her business. She told me not to worry and that she only loves me. I got a strange feeling, but I loved her so much and believed her. What happened before that day was not important for me because in my opinion, our relationship just started now. The aerobics were great and some days we didn't even leave the room. She still got messages sometimes and went out to talk on her phone. I didn't think too much about it as she was with me and she looked very happy. We went to her shop one afternoon to pick up some of her stuff she needed for travelling. It was a very small room with one hairdressing chair in front of a mirror, one massage table and a small room with a mattress in the back where she stored her personal things. She told me that she occasionally gives massages to customers as she had learned massage before she started hairdressing. I experienced her massages later that holiday and I was very satisfied. We spent 3 weeks travelling together and I paid for hotels and food, but she never asked me for anything. I decided to buy her a gold bracelet the day before I went home because I felt the desire to do it. Back in Germany, there was still doubt in my head about her friend and the pictures I saw on her phone. We talked on the phone every day and on some days she went to an internet shop so we could see each other on a webcam. After a month, she asked me for the first time about money. It was the rainy season and there was flooding on the part of the island and she didn't have any customers. I told her that I don't really have a lot of money as I'm a student, but I sent her around 8,000 baht. We tried to talk every day, but there were some days where she ran out of battery or was sick. I never felt good when that happened, but I was already completely blind. Sometimes she went to see her family in Isan or went to a temple where the signal was too bad to talk. One time she told me she had an accident and needed money for the damaged motorbike. I told her I couldn't help and I suddenly couldn't call her for a few days. She said she felt bad and slept a lot. I believed her. She was complaining that she didn't get as many customers as before and told me that she got the opportunity to work in a massage shop in Singapore and make a lot of more money than in Thailand. I already had a flight booked for June 2009 and I told her that I don't really like the idea and was worried that she wouldn't make it to Thailand on time. I had a bad feeling in my gut about that. It wasn't easy to talk with her on the phone because my software didn't provide free calls to Singapore. As time went on, I kept asking her when she would come back to Thailand. She said she will be there when I arrive. I had around 6 weeks that I wanted to spend with Tum, but I didn't come alone. Pete and another friend planned to stay for 4 on Koh Samui. 1 week before the flight, Tum told me that she couldn't come to Thailand when I arrived, but she promised to come as soon as possible. I was very frustrated and sad, but at least I could party a bit with my friends until she arrives. I visited her sister Na and John and told them that I was worried about Tum. Na told me that she also lost contact with her and that they barely write to each other now. She was worried about what's really going on. I went out to party every night and almost cheated on Tum, but I still loved her so much. I asked Tum if I could visit her in Singapore. She said yes, but when I stay there, she still needs to work. After 2 weeks in Thailand, I had a flight booked to Singapore. I felt at home in Thailand, but I had no idea about Singapore, what to do or where to stay. I took a taxi to an area called Geylang, where she picked me up and led me to her room on top of a corner shop. She was very happy and we acted like nothing happened. The room was normal with basic equipment and nothing seemed suspicious to me. In the evening, we went outside to eat. I met 2 of her colleagues, 2 Thai women around her age but not really pretty. They explained to me that they couldn't leave Singapore because they got caught working in Singapore without a working visa and now they waited for a trial and to be sent back to Thailand. In the daytime, they still went to work and came back around 10:30 p.m. The second day is when something crazy happened. I was in the room and was watching TV. I heard loud knocks and women's voices outside the room. I opened the door and her 2 colleagues screamed at me that I should follow them. I asked if I should take something. They seemed very upset and scared and said no time. I felt that something wasn't right and just followed them. No lift, they said, and we ran down the stairs down to the underground car park out onto the street and they brought me to the hotel where they were staying. All the way I asked them what's going on and where is my girlfriend is. They told me that Tum is okay and she will explain everything later. I waited in their room and was really scared. Tum came 1 hour later. She was upset and I waited for an explanation. The story is that the owner of the massage parlour where she works paid for the room where she stayed before. He wanted to be her boyfriend, but Tum said no. He was jealous of me and when he heard that I stayed in that room, he wanted to fight with me. I was still shocked, but I believe her story. If he was her boyfriend, why did she bring me in that situation? She didn't hide me from someone the day before. Later that night, all of the girls went to the room and packed the bags for me and Tum and brought them to the hotel. After that incident, we rented a room in that hotel and she went on going to work in the daytime and we spent the nights together. One day, it happened again. Loud knocks on my door. This time, no women voices. I heard a man scream. Open the door. I was immediately thinking it was a jealous man and I would get a beating. I looked through the door view and saw a group of men with sticks. I realised that they were police vests. I was very quiet, but they knew I was in there. They told me to open the door and knocked even louder. I opened the door and they all went in. They immediately started to look around and search the bags of me and Tum. I was so scared at that moment that they would find something illegal in Tum's bag or even frame me for something. We both didn't smoke or do anything else illegal. But how sure can I be that at that point? They asked me who stays in the room with me. I said, my girlfriend from Thailand. They laughed at me and said I should not pay too much for the women around here. After a quick search, they left the room and I was relieved. The rest of the time in Singapore was pretty boring. We went out to celebrate one of the colleagues' birthdays with 5 of the Thai women who all worked in the same shop. Another day I went to court with them and they got their passports and they were told to leave Singapore within the next 24 hours. We booked the tickets and flew back to Bangkok. I had only 3 days left and the time with Tum always felt special. She never gave me the feeling that she doesn't love me. Again, I didn't pay anything for her other than the food and the room in Bangkok. Maybe I gave her the rest of my Thai baht at the airport, but I don't think that it was very much. We made plans that she would visit me next. I paid for her German language school and would try to organise as much as I could. Our visa application got rejected, which was very hard for the both of us, and we lost a bit of hope of how our future together could work. I met a woman who had a long-distance relationship with a boyfriend in France. It felt so good to talk about the typical problems and we started to have a discussion. It helped me to get my mind off all my doubts and unanswered questions, but I still loved Tum so much. After her time in Singapore, she started working in Bangkok for some time. My next holiday was in 2010 and it started very interestingly. Her brother picks us up with his car in Bangkok and we drove to their hometown in Isan. We stayed a few days with the family in rural Thailand. Chickens everywhere, no normal toilets, just holes in the ground and very simple houses. Then one morning we were taken to an engagement party of Tum's brother around 6 hours away. After the party we drove back to their hometown, switched to the brother's car and drove straight back to Bangkok. It was already night time and everybody in the car was super tired. The brother was driving and I could see that he had problems keeping his eyes open. I had to touch him sometimes. Until today, this was one of the scariest situations I've ever been in. And I have experienced some scary stuff. It was sunrise when we suddenly stopped the car on the side of the highway and started sleeping. Every truck passing us sent vibrations to the car and I was horrified but tired as well. Luckily, we made it back to Bangkok. The rest of the holidays we spent on Koh Samui and we had good times together. She saw some messages on my phone from my girlfriend in Germany. I tried to explain that she is just a friend. When it was time to say goodbye, we both cried a lot. I stopped my relationship in Germany and hoped that our relationship would be strong enough until we could somehow move together. She was still learning German and we planned to marry one day. The next holiday was totally normal, but after that everything got worse really fast. There were more and more times that I couldn't contact her. She told me that she found work in Brunei for a few months and I got Singapore flashbacks. Some weeks she visited a temple. She found so many reasons to not answer my phone and it made me sick. She still said that she loved me and I still loved her, but the doubts were getting bigger and bigger. Almost time for the next visit and Tum said she's going to Malaysia to work in a restaurant. I was angry because something similar had already happened to me before. But this time she didn't really care about it anymore. Tum had an empty room in a townhouse of her pregnant friend. So she told me to wait there for her. I just had to buy a bed and I could sleep there. 2 weeks before I arrived, I called Tum and there was a man answering her phone. He said Tum would call me back later, but she never called and I could not contact her again. I wrote to her pregnant friend and asked her if she knew anything. She said Tum would come back to Bangkok soon. I almost cancelled my flight, but I wanted to go back to Thailand and talk face to face with Tum. I ended up spending 1 week in an empty room in a house with a pregnant woman who I barely knew and her boyfriend. When Tum finally arrived, we talked and she told me again that I am her only boyfriend and that she only loves me. We went shopping and I bought her the new bed for her room because I still had feelings for her and because my back couldn't take the hard floor anymore. The second night together, I heard her talking on the phone in the bedroom. I waited for my opportunity and I dialed the last number back. Hello, this is Martin, Tum's boyfriend. Who are you? What are you talking about? I am Tum's boyfriend. Where is Tum? At this point, the reality came crashing down on me. There was no more denying it. I didn't want to see the signs, but now my eyes were wide open. I felt so bad and depressed and didn't know what to do. I was traumatized, and believe it or not, after screaming at each other for a while, I asked her if she still wanted to spend my holidays with me. She even said yes. The time together was awful this time. There were no more tears at the airport. I looked at her again and I didn't even like her appearance anymore. The magic I always felt with her was gone. We still wrote to each other on our birthdays, and one day she called me from Hong Kong telling me that she is pregnant. She is now married and her little boy is 5 years old. One year later, I came to Thailand again to travel alone. I did some pay for play in Hua Hin and even met a Chinese tourist in Chiang Mai who travelled and shared the bed with me for a week. Nothing serious and everything without feelings. I was sure that I wanted to live this kind of life for a few years, and then on the last day in Thailand I met my wife. We are now married for 8 years. Our daughter is 2 years old and I couldn't be happier. John and Na split up in 2011 and John ended up in jail and we lost contact with him. Looking back, I feel very stupid on how I reacted. I wish I would have listened to your stories earlier. There was not much financial demand in the 4 years I was with her, but the emotions I experienced were on another level. I have to say that I still learnt a lot from this experience, and without it, I wouldn't appreciate the situation that I am now in. To see my wonderful daughter playing on the same beach where I played when I was 3 years old is something very special. What a fantastic story. But you know what? When I read it, there were so many red flags there. The first red flag for me was when he went to the hair salon where she's got the mirror and the barber chair. And he said there was a room with a mattress where she keeps her personal belongings, you know, a massage shop with a room with a mattress. I mean, come on. And no, I mean, it was typical. He admitted in the story that he was quite naive at the time. Anybody who's experienced would have seen all those red flags. You know, Geylang, for instance, in Singapore is a working girl area straight away. It's obvious what she was doing. She was a regular massage girl. She was making money from all the things on the side, and you know, she was flying to other countries to make even more money. So I'm happy for him that it ended well. Right, guys, very long story. I've got to go and get a drink of water now. Thanks for listening. I'll go back to the new format next week with a B-roll behind me. I don't know what I'm going to film yet. I might go down to Siam Square or somewhere like that. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all again next week.